Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of My Burning Heart. This may be the final episode. I don't know how long this Harun ending is going to take. The last video honestly felt like Harun's ending, but it wasn't. It was Rashid's bad ending, at least according to the guide. Anyway, we are gonna go ahead and do this now. I've brought us to the final choice, and all of this should be new dialogue now because it will not let me skip it. Okay. The words came out before Adnan could control what he was saying.
Go to hell, you crazy bastard!
He probably just propositioned us for sexual intercourse. The vizier gritted his teeth and grabbed Adnan's forearm in a vice grip.
Who do you think you are, kid? I could destroy you right now if I wanted.
He twisted Adnan's arm in a rather painful way.
I don't even need a whip. Or an excuse.
Stop it!
Or what? Don't you see you're powerless?
I know, things are going just as bad as last time. Is there gonna be more puppy play and more couscous? He released Adnan's arm but whispered his next threats directly on the boy's ear, so close that his turban brushed Adnan's cheek.
I'll have you. One way or another. You choose if you want to make this easy, or you want to make this hard. But I'll break that stubbornness of yours and bring you to your knees. This, I swear.
Hey, is everything all right there?
No. A guard appeared at the doors that led to the harem common room and jogged to the part of the garden they were in.
Your Highness, is this slave bothering you?
The vizier frowned, visibly annoyed by the interruption.
Nothing is happening here.
However, the guard pretended not to notice Harun's furious face and gripped Adnan's forearm, pulling him away from the vizier.
You are not allowed to address His Highness or give him trouble, boy. Go back to your duties, now!
Adnan walked away from the vizier as fast as he could, not stopping to watch the vizier's reaction. Alright. I think we can skip again. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, the first thing Adnan noticed was his stomach turning even before opening his eyes. What happened? Wait, did we just fail to escape? Yes. Halim just screwed us. Then the sound of nearby birds cawing and a strange smell. He opened his eyes, startled, but the darkness around him was almost absolute. Why are we by the sea? What the... That wasn't the palace dungeons. Where was he then? Confused, Adnan sat up in bed. It was a big bed, although not as big as the Sultan's, of course, but fit for two people, with a rather hard mattress and no canopy. He couldn't see anything else in the small room. No further furniture, or perhaps it was too dark to see it clearly. Just a wooden door and a tiny barred window near the low ceiling that showed a small patch of blue sky and nothing else. The door suddenly opened, startling Adnan.
Ah, about time. I was starting to wonder if you would sleep the whole day.
Oh my god, no more puppy play. I should have known. Where has this snake brought me to? Adnan tensed and said nothing. The vizier sighed, annoyed, and gestured for him to get out of the room.
Come on, don't stay here. Off you go.
Where are we going? Adnan stood up in the gloom, careful not to step on anything he couldn't see, and hesitated for a moment.
Aren't you going to tie my hands?
The man simply arched an eyebrow.
What for? There's nowhere to run.
He turned and left down a narrow, dark corridor, and Adnan followed him. Whoa. I guess we're on a ship, not at the coast. A ship. They were actually on a ship. Amazed, Adnan ran to the railing and watched the sea surrounding them in all directions. Beyond what the eye could see, they were offshore. When the surprise subsided, Adnan looked around. There were a few sailors working on the deck, one or two of them observing them askance, but in general not paying much attention. The vizier was right. There was nowhere to go. Well, yeah, it's the ocean. If Adnan wanted to escape, the sea was the only way, and that would mean his death. He turned to look at the vizier, who was watching him with a sly smile.
Why are we on a ship? Where are you taking me, Your Highness?
The man wrinkled his nose.
I'm not the great vizier anymore, boy. So just Harun from now on.
Wait, what happened? I don't understand. He lost his position?
Although you can call me master if you want.
Wait, what? Ignoring his amused tone, Adnan hissed at the ex-vizier. Was he fired? Did Rashid call Harun into his office and was like, "You're fired"?
Do you think I'll go from one master's hands to another like a loan coin? Go buy your own slave, I'm not yours. And what do you mean that you aren't the Sultan's vizier anymore?
The man rested his elbows on the railing and squinted at Adnan, choosing his words with care.
Let's say it was the right time for a change.
I mean, I guess we tried to escape. What did you do, though, after that to get yourself fired?
I don't follow.
His Majesty was about to find out about a nice amount of money that has been diverted through the years. Small sums, but that put together are a nice bit of capital.
You've been embezzling money from Abd al-Rashid?
What? Have you been stealing money from His Majesty?
Why you sound so offended?
How could you? He trusted you with his life.
Honey, why are you so angry? Do you like Rashid still?
Look who's talking. The pampered lover who just ran away from his loving hands.
Adnan felt a painful knot in his throat and didn't react when Harun came closer and whispered into his ear.
What betrayal do you think he will mourn the most? The loss of his loyal right hand, or the refusal of the ungrateful brat who took his heart and stepped on it?
I don't know if that's a genuine question. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, he didn't really seem to care either way.
Want to bet?
He really didn't seem to care when we were gone. So probably you. At least in the bad ending, he did not care that much. He cried for like 2 seconds, then sent us off to your sex dungeon, so... Adnan pushed the man off and walked away. He felt guilty enough without Harun's taunts. Not only for Abd al-Rashid, although he felt like a monster for leaving him that way, but also because he hadn't said anything to Halim. No goodbye words or any explanation. Oh, did we not even tell Halim we were escaping that time? Interesting. After how good and sweet Halim had been with him, because I skipped through all that. Harun was already turning his back to leave him alone when Adnan approached him again and tugged on his sleeve to get his attention.
Wait! You still haven't told me where we are going, or why I am here in this ship instead of the palace dungeons.
But why suddenly, just in this route only, was Rashid about to find out that you were embezzling from him, and in no other route? Whatever. I guess just convenient plot devices. The man answered with the same impassive, undreadable face. And you also stole us when you left? That's kind of weird.
The ship is bound for Naples. You should relax. The trip will take us around a week.
Naples? That's...
Adnan tried to remember the Mediterranean map Halim had used to teach him geography. Naples was at the other side of the sea. That was like saying at the other side of the world.
Naples in the Christian territories.
Right. And the biggest city in the Mediterranean right now. The perfect place to start anew. Especially when you own a ship loaded with expensive delicacies to sell.
He bought this ship and turned his money into goods? That's what he's done with the sum he stole from the Sultan, Adnan thought with a hum?
Currently ruled by Ferdinand I. A well-known bastard in more than one sense of the word.
Adnan raised his eyebrows with curiosity. Harun smiled like a big feline and expanded on his explanation. So is Adnan just gonna be like, okay, rich daddy, I'll be your sugar baby. You know, is that how this is gonna end?
It is said that he embalms his enemies and has them displayed with the outfit they wore when they were alive. He usually takes his guests on a tour of his prized Museum of Mummies. Would you like to see it, Adnan? I think I'll be able to get an audience with him, so if you want...
Adnan took a step back, repulsed. Harun threw his head back and laughed wholeheartedly.
Perhaps I should do the same with my enemies. What do you think, Adnan?
The boy turned his back on him and strode to the other side of the deck, scared and sickened by the vizier. The rest of the day was quiet. Adnan spoke with the sailors since, once on the open sea, they didn't seem too busy. They were a bit distant at first, but respectful, and Adnan had the impression that they weren't sure how they should address him. But after some hours with so little to do on the ship and so few people to talk to, the sailors started to be less wary of him.
Adnan, would you join us? Do you like playing dice?
Why do you sound so sultry? Do you want some of this sex slave booty? Dice? Adnan frowned and took a look at the small rounded bones in the man's hand.
Knucklebones. Have you ever played?
Adnan shook his head in denial.
Gambling is forbidden, so no.
The man laughed and shrugged it off.
We don't gamble money anyway. It's just for passing the time. Come, the others are waiting.
Okay, Mr. Sailor-san. Well, it was entertaining and made the hours fly. Adnan decided by dinner time, and almost all the men in the ship joined in, which was nice. The only ones who kept themselves aside were the captain and Harun. The ex-vizier spent the day sitting on a foldable chair on the other side of the deck, with a pile of books by his side. Despite his progress at reading, Adnan still couldn't believe someone chose to entertain himself with books the whole day. The Sultan and Harun obviously had that in common. They have a lot more in common, sister. They had a light dinner on the berth deck, and the crew pushed him into his cabin, because they were starting to sling their hammocks for the nighttime, and they barely had enough space as it was. Forced back to the dark and narrow cabin, Adnan found Harun already getting ready for bed too.
I'm sleeping out with the crew.
Harun raised an eyebrow, as if he just said something incredibly stupid.
There's no place for you there. The berth deck is already overpopulated. And this bed is wide enough for the two of us.
Aww.
I already told you. I'm not going to pass from the Sultan's hands to yours like a second-hand shirt.
The man cut off his words with an icy glare.
If you don't want to sleep in the bed, you're invited to use the floor. But inside the room, please.
Those sailors will poke you in the butt if you sleep out there, Adnan. They'll do it. Did you hear how that one sailor sounded? He locked the door with a key that hung from a chain around his neck and climbed onto the high bed, blowing the candle out and turning the gloom into pitch black. Confused and angry, Adnan lay down on the floor and tried to go to sleep. Oh dang, why'd we go on the floor? The next day was pretty much a repeat of the first one, with the addition of Adnan feeling weary and tired since he hadn't been able to sleep a wink the previous night. The floor was hard and the humidity crept into his bones, and the soft swaying of the ship made Adnan feel uncomfortable and dizzy. And a bit dizzy didn't help either. The wind was calm, but the little there was pushed them in the right direction, the sailors told him, so they had little to do apart from cleaning, cooking, and securing the ropes. So the crew spent most of the day playing dice, singing, and talking. Adnan soon learned the names of the ones who were more talkative and open with him. Syed, and Omer. He was glad they treated him in such a normal, casual way without despising him for being a slave and calling him Adnan instead of using boy or you, as most of the guards called him in the palace. Is one of them... God, is this the start of our new sailor life? And is one of these sailors gonna be a repeat of Jamal? Do you remember that? He felt like a free person again, although he knew that was just an illusion. He caught some of the other sailors discreetly checking him over, though, and realized a total change was almost impossible while he wore those harem clothes.
Say, Sahid, wouldn't you have a spare outfit to lend me?
They like looking. That's the only reason they even talk to you, Adnan, okay? So you want to keep those clothes on. The sailor, a young guy barely older than Adnan, looked aside and suddenly awkward.
About that. The master told us not to give you any clothes, Adnan. I'm sorry.
What else did he tell you regarding me?
He wanted you to stay
just said
sexy.
That we mustn't treat you like a slave and speak normally to you.
Yeah, but you gotta keep wearing those slave clothes and keep shaking that booty. The boy chuckled. Why are you chuckling at me? Saeed, why?
Some of the tougher guys are having a bit of a problem with that. I regret to say that's why they are keeping their distance from you. They still see you as a harem boy.
Well, this hole's open for them anytime they want it, sugar. He noticed Adnan's expression and rushed to add.
But don't worry. They would never lay their hands on you. Apart from the master's orders, some of them are married, and the rest prefer to wait until they can visit the next town's brothel. So, you're safe.
Safe, eh?
He didn't feel safe. He felt confused and hated the feeling of not knowing what exactly was happening. He didn't feel helpless, and that was an unpleasant feeling. He left the sailors and walked towards the ex-vizier, who was sitting on the same spot as the previous day, calmly reading a thick volume.
Your Highness, I have some questions.
The man sighed and turned in his chair to look at Adnan with a frown.
Harun. I told you to call me by my given name. I'm not a vizier now. Have you forgotten?
I know, and calling him the vizier might, could land him in trouble if Rashid's... if anyone... I don't know, if Rashid's goons or, someone who knows that the vizier betrayed Rashid is in Naples. He could get, in trouble. Adnan didn't think he was capable of calling him by his name. It just didn't feel right. I could call him a snake, though, he thought.
Sir, can you allow me to wear normal clothes until we arrive to Naples? I would feel more comfortable and they wouldn't be dirty and ragged when we arrive to our destination.
No. I like the eye candy, and it will be only for your short stay in the ship, so you can endure the inconvenience for a while more. You can wear whatever you want once we reach Naples. Next question?
Alright, now Adnan was completely lost. Weren't they heading to the other side of the Mediterranean so Harun could sell the goods he carried in the ship? His only doubt about that was, what if he was part of the goods, or if Harun intended to keep him as a personal slave?
If you don't have any other futile questions, then let me go back to my book.
Yes, sir.
No! I mean, of course I have more questions.
Harun sighed and squinted at him as if he was forced to deal with an especially obtuse child.
And those are?
Well, the first one, obviously, is what you mean to do with me once we are in Naples.
As soon as we set foot in Naples, you'll be again a free man.
Oh my god, really? Can I have as much couscous as I want tonight? And he opened again his book, ignoring Adnan's flabbergasted face.
What? That doesn't make the slightest sense.
Harun looked back at him with annoyance.
Would you prefer to serve me until the end of your sentence? I'd rather have someone more discreet and well-mannered as a servant. But it can't be helped if you want to stay in my service.
Oh my god, let's do it.
Ugh, stop joking around. This is serious. What am I supposed to do in Naples then?
He just told you, you don't have to be a free man, you could stay in his service. I mean, how are you gonna feed yourself? You're gonna have to turn back to thieving, and then you'll get sent to the slave fields again, and then someone's gonna send you to Rashid's palace again, and then Rashid's gonna see you again, and he's gonna be like, you need to go. I remember you. Harun shrugged and went back to his book.
That's none of my business. You can join a brothel if you want to keep using your ass as a means of survival. Or you can look for a job as a servant. After all, it took us months to train you to be a half-decent servant, so you should make good use of those new skills. You can also go back to whatever you did to survive before joining the harem. As I said, it's none of my business.
Harun used to wear a hat, right? Did he have to turn in his vizier hat when he when he stopped being a vizier? Adnan needed a long time to get over the shock and find his words again.
And why did you take me with you? I don't understand it.
The man pulled a face and didn't bother to look back at Adnan.
That's enough questions for one day. Now get out of my sight and leave me alone.
No, why did you decide to take us with you? That's the big one. Annoyed, Adnan didn't have any other option but to obey. Adnan wasn't looking forward to spending another blank night on the floor of the cabin. Once the lights were off, he turned and tossed for a while. Soon he could hear the even breathing of his roommate. Harun seemed to be deeply asleep. The bee. It was unfair. He said you could sleep with him. Adnan got to his feet, trying to be silent, and climbed onto the tall, hard bed. He lay down by Harun's side, facing the wall, careful not to touch him. His exhaustion after the previous night's lack of sleep did the rest, and he fell asleep in seconds. Is he gonna wake up with Harun's arms around him? Oh my. To Adnan's chagrin, a laugh woke him up. When the sky was already light blue through the tiny window of their cabin, he had intended to go back to the floor before the man woke up. So much for that. And still worse, he was lying with a leg thrown over Harun's ones and his hand on the man's chest. Embarrassed, Adnan sat up and put some distance between them.
It's difficult to get rid of old habits, right? I bet you're having some trouble adapting to the lack of sexual activity besides.
Well, you know, you guys really mind broke me into a massive SLUT. Adnan closed his thighs and covered his erection. It wasn't his fault. It was true that he was used to having regular sex with the Sultan. He hadn't given it more thought, but was it normal that his body was reacting with morning wood? Yeah, it was normal. That is normal. He mentally thanked the darkness of the cabin. That awful man hadn't seen his state, although he obviously could imagine it. He rushed to the main deck where the crew was already at work, and Harun followed him. It didn't seem like breakfast was ready yet, so before the man could fetch his foldable chair and his books again, Adnan shot the question Harun had been evading.
I already asked this twice. Why are you taking me with you on this trip? Especially since you don't have the intention of keeping me as a slave or selling me.
Harun rested his forearms on the railing and watched the calm surface of the sea for a while. He answered when Adnan was going to break the long silence and ask again.
I was doing His Majesty a favor. Both of you, in fact.
Yeah, His Majesty would have sent us back to the slave field and cried.
You weren't adapting to the palace lifestyle at all. You acted like a caged tiger, always angry and on the defensive. Stubborn. A beautiful wild animal, ready to jump at our throats at the first chance.
What? I don't...
You know exactly what he's talking about. Why are you feigning ignorance?
It's a figure of speech. You were preparing those clumsy escape attempts since the first day, right? And meanwhile, His Majesty, the poor, blind idiot, kept falling more and more in love with you, just like the spoiled brat he's always been.
Well, he is an idiot and he is a spoiled brat, but he's also sadistic underneath it all.
Hey, don't! Show His Majesty some respect!
Why is Adnan simping for Rashid? I can't with how much he's simping for Rashid after what happened last route.
You didn't mind breaking his heart with your coldness and your ingratitude during these months, so don't fucking talk about respect!
You really need to stop simping. I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm with Harun on this one. Holy God.
After all, it's what he deserved for being so gullible and fickle. This had to happen.
Too bad we didn't kill him before we left, honestly.
This will teach him to distrust all the flattery and the fake smiles of those who only want his protection and his money. And to not offer his affection so lightly.
He turned to look at Adnan with an icy glare.
See? I was doing the two of you a favor. You should be thanking me. I took you away from your golden cage and gave you your freedom back, and saved the poor Abd al-Rashid from the beast who was devouring his heart.
Don't you dare talk like that! His
Oh.
Majesty thought of you as his best friend. And you were stealing from him for years!
Can you just, like, slap Adnan across the face, Harun? Please, with your big yaoi hands. Please do it.
It's not my fault that I couldn't return his feelings. But you? Leaving like this, in the middle of the night with his money and his lover?
God, I know I said it before, but look at his yaoi hands. Holy God. He could hold Adnan's head like a basketball in his hands.
His best friend, you say? Oh, come on, don't make me laugh. I've been nothing but his servant, the confidant to his dirty mind and his troubles with the Sultanate. But always a step lower than him, of course. He would never think of me as an equal.
Adnan bit his lower lip, thinking hard. He felt so guilty about how he had treated the Sultan that he couldn't help but want to defend him from the disparaging remarks of the Vizier.
That's because of his upbringing. Nothing he can change. But he trusted you and considered you his best friend.
Harun pouted and turned his back to Adnan again. When he spoke next, his tone sweetened.
That's just because I saved his life once. Since that day, he used to say, "I trust you with my life, Harun."
You saved His Majesty's life?
Somehow he had trouble believing that manipulative snake could save someone's life. Even less the man he later betrayed.
Oh, it was around 10 years ago. Abd al-Rashid was just a teenager, and I had recently joined his father's service. Not as a vizier yet, of course. My family are merchants, but they aren't rich. I had to work hard to convince my father to pay for my studies instead of learning his business. In the end, he acquiesced and acceded to let one of my brothers take over his business instead of me.
Wow, started from the bottom and now you're at the top. But except you're not at the top anymore.
So, I started working as a low-ranked civil servant for His Majesty's father, doing accounting tasks mostly.
Adnan listened, mesmerized. He never wondered before about the Vizier's origins, but that explained many things. He nodded, prompting him to go on, although the man only looked at him now and then and focused on his story.
At that time, I was asked to accompany Abd al-Rashid on one of his travels. I guess his father thought that, being of similar ages, I could be a good travel partner for him. We were traveling across the desert. We stopped for the night, and the servants were putting up the tents. The young prince wanted to go for a walk, and I went with him to check that he didn't get lost. And then a viper appeared from under his feet and bit him on the side.
Oh my god, did you have to suck out the viper venom? Because that doesn't work. That's just a thing in movies. That's not real. Adnan gasped. He had seen viper bites more than once. A bite on a leg or an arm wasn't usually mortal, but on the torso is another story.
I jumped on him at once and sucked on his wound, spitting the poison out, and then cleaned his wound with boiled wine.
A sad smile danced on his lips at the memory.
When we returned to the palace, his father named me one of his viziers. And when he died, Abd al-Rashid made me his great vizier.
Adnan didn't know what to say. In the end, he frowned and accused him again.
And yet, after all these years of trust, you had the gall to steal from him.
Harun sighed and glared at him.
Look, I've already explained it, and I didn't want to stay by his side until the end of my days saying, "Yes, Your Majesty, no, Your Majesty," and biting my tongue every single day to stop myself from talking back. I served him right and worked hard for his sake and the Sultanate's, so I think we are even.
Honestly, Adnan, why don't you just go back to the Sultanate and suck Rashid's big fat you-know-what, because clearly that's all you want to do right now.
Now,
That's all he can
look
think
for something
about.
to do, and don't speak to me again unless it's to tell me breakfast is ready.
Honestly, I like the attitude Harun's serving. Kind of like him in this route. Kind of like this ending. Adnan spent the rest of the day with the sailors, helping them in their tasks or just hanging out. Harun ignored him for the rest of the day, and Adnan could just pretend he was traveling on his own with the crew. At night, though... Yeah, when are we gonna have our scene with Harun?
Stop being a dumbass and get in the bed.
Like, when are we just gonna have a wholesome scene with Harun? Adnan kept staring stubbornly at the wall instead.
If you prefer the floor, then don't join me in the bed later. The sleep me could think you're a merman visiting me at night and jump you.
Hee hee.
How do I know you're not going to jump me anyway?
If I remember it right, it was the other way around last night.
Haha.
But if you are so eager to have my company, I guess it can't be helped. Just wake me up first, please.
That wasn't... Ugh.
The ex-vizier yawns.
Well, whatever. Stop being childish and sleep in the bed. There's enough room so we don't need to touch each other. Unless you want to.
Let's touch him. In the end, after weighing up what was worse, the exhaustion and back pain from trying to sleep on the floor, the possibility of waking up curled over the man again, he chose the bed.
Wise decision.
Adnan glared at him and crawled to the side of the bed, next to the wall.
I still don't understand what you get out of this.
Why, the pleasure of your company, of course.
Aww. And he laughed in a most unpleasant way before putting out the candle. At least he's genuine, you know. It's not like Rashid. Harun says what he wants and what he means. Rashid's just two-faced, you know? Like I said last time. He woke up with a hand inside Harun's nightshirt that morning. Why are you like this? Like, during the night, Adnan's body, it just becomes a thought. It's like he is a thought. Adnan is a thought. So when he's asleep, it's just his subconscious desires just unveil themselves. What was wrong with him? The time passed with the Sultan had certainly spoiled him. The vizier wasn't Rashid, so it was embarrassing that the man had stayed true to his word and didn't touch him. And instead, it was him, the one who was doing the groping. Maybe we should try and get used to the floor. The crew were playing dice on the main deck again, and Adam was having a nice time with them until something he heard surprised him.
Say that again?
What, that we were woken up in the middle of the night and told to prepare the ship to set sail in 2 hours?
Yes, that. How come? You weren't supposed to leave the day we did?
No, we were going to stay another week. It was all so sudden.
Ooh, so the vizier, or rather Harun, arranged it all. The other sailors nodded in agreement. How strange. So Harun was preparing the trip, but advanced the departure date and left in the middle of the night because of his escape attempt.
Why would Harun do that?
The sailors shrugged and looked inside. Oh my god, he did it for our sake.
For you, I guess.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but don't give it much thought. Powerful men are different. They can act on a whim if they want, and since they're the ones paying, the rest of us just nod and do as we're told.
More nods of agreement. Well, Adam was still confused, and letting that slip wasn't something so simple. Ah. The master appeared on the deck, and all the sailors bowed his heads with respect before going back to their dice. Adnan stood up and approached him, a bit hesitant.
Sir?
Ignoring him, left for the bridge, where the captain and helmsman were discussing something. He's like, I ain't got time for you, thought. He was sure Harun had noticed him, though, so he was ignoring him on purpose. That should not have said couldn't have, it should have said could have. They didn't talk about it the next morning. Adnan expected the jabs, the taunts, but instead the two of them got cleaned and dressed in silence, avoiding looking at each other. The shame. And then they left in the dark cabin and joined the crew for breakfast on the berth deck. Harun at the captain's table and Adnan sitting on the floor in the furthest corner with Saeed and Omer. He spent the morning with his new acquaintances, but in the afternoon he made an attempt on approaching Harun and talk with him. Hey, so last night was pretty special, huh? The man was in his usual place, sitting on his chair with a huge book on his lap, facing the sea, and he didn't even hear him coming closer, or pretended he hadn't.
Sir, Harun?
Yes?
The name still felt foreign on Adnan's tongue, but did the trick, and the ex-vizier turned and gave him his attention. I should say something about last night, but what? No, let's forget about that, he decided.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea of being a free man again.
Harun stared at him, but said nothing.
I mean, can I be sure that it's not a trick?
No, it's not a trick.
But why would you do this? All the time? In the palace? I thought you hated me.
Why, I was only having fun with you. You know, all the people who join the harem are more or less the same. Same cute faces, same perfect young bodies. Beauty gets boring quickly when you're surrounded by it. But you... that unrestrained rage, your poor attempts at being civil, that set you apart and made you funny to observe.
I'm glad I was good entertainment for you then.
Don't take it like that. I'm not mocking you. You were interesting. And unique. Especially when the months started to pass by and, despite your progress at learning useful stuff and getting close to Halim and His Majesty, you were still the same wild guy from the start. Untamed. And beautiful.
Adnan didn't know what to say. Those compliments of sorts made him feel uncomfortable, so he changed the topic as quickly as he could.
Then there's the question of what I'm going to do in Naples. If it's true that I'll be a free man again, I should look for a job. But I know nothing about Naples. I don't even know what language they speak.
Right? Harun hubbed in agreement and gestured to his books.
As for the language, they speak Neapolitan. Napolitano, as they call it. I'm trying to learn the basics during our trip, and also doing some research. Of course, you're invited to borrow my books and learn by yourself.
Adnan took a look at the huge pile of books and his heart dropped.
I'd rather not.
Adnan no read good. Can Harun please teach Adnan? Harun laughed wholeheartedly.
I guessed as much. Then, I think some of the sailors speak a bit of Neapolitan. They can teach you some useful sentences at least.
Adnan nodded, relieved.
I'll do that.
The man turned his face to the book on his hands.
And of course, if once there you find it difficult to find a job, you can always work for me. I could use an assistant who speaks my language, being in a foreign country.
An assistant? That sounds suspicious.
The man sighed.
Only for you, Adnan. I intend to do some commercial business now that I own the ship, and it will be too much work for a single person. But, of course, it's your decision.
Let's do it. Let's make the big money, Adnan. Come on.
You'll probably be better off on your own.
No, I want to be a sugar baby. Adnan stared at him in silence, but Harun focused again on his book and seemed to forget he was still there. Honestly, Harun's pretty good in this round. I love him. How did this happen since the last video? How did this happen? The boy finally left, walking to the opposite side of the main deck. Saeed called for him, but he told him he would join them later. He had too much on his mind to think about. When the night came and they went back to their cabin, Adnan had already made up his mind, at least partly.
Harun, I decided what I want to do.
Sorry, about what, exactly?
Like he doesn't even care.
For now, about this.
Ooh, what's happening? What? Are you touching him right now? I thought you meant, like, you were gonna be like, I want to be your assistant, but are you just, like, coming on to him? Hey, what's up? What's up, hun? Then, the moment he went out to the main deck, the first thing he saw was Harun staring at the sea. Let's hug him from behind and be like, Harun, daddy, Harun-sama. Looking him in the eye was going to be difficult after the previous night. What if Harun reacted with his usual smirk? Adnan didn't think he'd be able to take it that well that morning. The Ixo's ear turned when he heard his steps on the deck.
Adnan, are you okay? I couldn't wake you up this morning, but I asked the cook to put some breakfast aside for you.
I gave you such a good D last night. You were passed out cold in the morning. Like, dear Lord, imagine. I thought you might have been dead. Don't worry, there's still breakfast. Adnan nodded, relieved by the food and Harun's reaction.
Thank you. I'm hungry.
Of course, after last night's exercise.
I could imagine. There it was, his stupid smirk. Nothing had changed between them, and to Adnan's surprise, he was glad of it. For a short moment, when he saw him leaning on his elbows on the railing, he thought he wanted Harun to treat him with care and kindness, similar to how the Sultan used to treat him. But no, you like it a little rough. Who was he kidding? Harun was Harun, and he didn't want him to be different. However, he made Adnan skip a beat when he took his hand gently and suddenly asked him,
Are you sure you feel alright? Perhaps you should rest in the cabin today.
No, I'm fine, I assure you. I'm stronger than I look.
The vizier smiled, visibly relieved.
Good. Adnan, I wanted to ask you something.
Yes, I'll marry you.
Last night, you told me you had decided on what you want to do. The captain has just told me that we'll reach Naples Harbor tomorrow. So...
He cleared his voice and avoided Adnan's eyes for a moment. Aw, kawaii, Harun, tsundere. The boy couldn't believe what he was seeing. Was Harun nervous because of him? Oh my god, I hate your laugh. Harun looked back at him with surprise. He looks like he's about to slap a hoe.
Yes. I've been considering my options, including, that job offer you mentioned.
The man was staring at him with a deep crease between his brows, tense.
I think working with you might be my best option, since I don't... Ugh!
What? Startling him, Harun took him by his arm, squeezing him tightly.
Sorry. I think you made the wisest decision.
Aw, look at him trying to keep his cool. He cleared his throat again, uncomfortable, and Adnan put a hand on top of his and smiled at him.
You said something about my breakfast, right? I'm starving.
Aw, this is cute. Harun smiled back at him and they walked to the lower deck holding hands. Oh my god. We can't listen to this. No. Can't listen to that. Okay. Okay, I had to cut that out fast because last time I got, the video got demonetized because of that ending credits theme. Yeah. So, in fact, it almost sounded like they changed the ending credits theme. Maybe they did change it, I don't know. But I didn't want to find out. Anyway, I really enjoyed that route with Harun. That was not what I was expecting. I was expecting something even worse than what we had received in Rashid's bad ending, but that was a pleasant surprise. Honestly, I stan Harun now. I hope y'all stan him too. I mean, Adnan was being kind of annoying in that ending. The way he was simping for Rashid actually murdered me. I hated it. I hated it so much. I don't know what... I guess he was simping for Rashid just because he was so horny. He wanted a little bit of a, the D. But once he got that D from Harun, he was like, oh, yeah, Rashid's kind of awful. But yeah, that was the final sort of ending in all of My Burning Heart. That's all of them now. I'm so sorry, I took off so long to try to finish this game. Because, I mean, with the last video, that came out so late. In fact, I recorded that video, like, 2 months ago, but it only, like, premiered or got published, whenever it did a couple weeks ago. So, I apologize for that. I apologize. But here I am, I'm finishing this game. It's done. I love the game. This game was excellent. It was great. I loved the dubious, I love the dubcon in it, dubious consent. Love that. We love that in here, in this channel. But yeah, I like the setting, I like the characters, except Rashid. Hate Rashid still. He's awful. And yeah, it was just a great game. And I want to say that I'm gonna finish Bocce Koi extremely soon. I think I just have one video left, so it's probably gonna be a long video, but I'm gonna finish that ASAP, and also First Degree Lovely Summer, I want to finish that ASAP since I only did one of the routes, and there's 3 more, so I'm gonna finish that ASAP. I want to finish everything I'm playing ASAP so I can start a new playthrough, a new game. And so I'm not starting a new game right now until I finish, you know, several more series that are just open. Cause yeah. Anyway, bye guys.